I'm going to sum up the email and kind of the situation so people that are listening can get some benefit from the answer as well. Is that all right, Matt?
Yeah, please.
So essentially, you went to what we believed a listing appointment, and the prospect, for the most part, sounded like he was pretty standoffish throughout your time together, and it didn't go the way that you had liked it. And the ultimate question is, how do you set yourself up and the prospect up for higher, I would say, quality listing appointments? Is that fair and accurate, would you say, to sum it up? Or would you add anything more to that before we get into it?
Yeah, I'd say that's accurate. I think I feel like I tried to set it up properly by prefacing, like, I'm gonna go over my plan and you can decide if it's gonna make sense for you. I'll even bring the paperwork if things, seem like a green light. I threw that in, and that's kind of how I prefaced the appointment. And it was the type of thing where he was having an open house, and I showed up like a little bit before to kind of see the house and talk to him, sit down and talk to him. And then I was like, I'll help you put your signs up at the end too.
So yeah, let's talk about it. So the first thing when I read your email, thanks for your email, by the way, Matt.
Yeah.
Thanks for being so detailed. I think there's a couple things I'm going to go through a lot with you to answer this question. I'm going to, for newer members, I don't want you guys to get confused, but we spend so much time talking about preview appointments. We're going to talk more about listing appointments and the differences. So for the newer members, just listen, but don't get confused on what I'm coaching Matt here. So when we set a real listing appointment, Matt, for me, it comes down to a couple things. It's all about clarity. Okay. So number one, I probably would not have done a listing appointment at an open house because their mind's going to be totally 100% distracted. Now, when I set a listing appointment and I'm tracking my numbers, at a very, very high level, which I think most people don't see the value. They don't understand the value of tracking their numbers until enough time goes by. In order for me to qualify something as a listing appointment, there's some things, Matt, that would have occurred before I went to the prospect's home. Okay. Number one, and for all of those that you want to take notes, please feel free to do that. Number one, I would have emailed the prospect certainly a copy of my resume so they can have time to review that prior to our meeting. I'm going to ask the prospect, Matt, to review my marketing plan of action. I'm going to also email the prospect a virtual or an interactive CMA with just a link to the MLS so they can review the comparable home sales, Matt, that I'm going to review with them in detail prior to the meeting. Okay. Those are the two big things that take a lot of time at an appointment. And then the third thing is going to happen is I'm going to have a calendar invitation sent to the prospect that's going to sit on their calendar and my calendar. And it's going to be an appointment just like any other professionals do. If we set a dentist appointment, the dentist is going to have an appointment slot, and hopefully you're tracking your life's appointments as well. Okay. The fourth thing that's going to occur is I'm going to ask a few questions to the prospect to set up for both of us to get what we want from the listing appointment. This is on page 18 of the script book that I'll share my screen now. And I'll go through with you, Matt. And because if this is a real listing appointment and they have invited me to interview for the job of selling their home, signing a contract, and listing their home with me, there is critical information that we need as a realtor in order to even complete a listing appointment, in my opinion. And so let me go through these 10 questions, Matt, and maybe it will spark some new thoughts. Okay. So, and I'm not going to role play it, but the first thing is I'm just going to after I set the appointment, Matt, I'm going to ask the prospect at that point, I'm going to say, Matt, there's a couple questions that I have so that we can make the most of our time when I see you on Thursday. Is that okay? I'm going to kind of gain their agreement because I need about 3 minutes to get through these 10 questions. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make sure I set that up. Have you seen the upfront listing agreement yet?
Yeah, I think I have. Yeah.
All right. So let's go through this. I'm going to re-verify motivation. So I'm going to say, Matt, when the house sells, where are you planning to move and when would you like that to happen? Okay. So I'm re-verifying motivation. Then I'm going to ask this fourth question. Do you need time after close? Okay. Or not? What am I asking for here?
The rent back or occupancy after.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Now, number 5, I say, got it. And Matt, is staying there an option? Can you just rent it? Can you just stay there? Or do you absolutely have to sell? I'm re-verifying motivation again. Okay. I'm looking for them to say, well, man, I don't give a shit if this thing sells or not. I got it out there at some ridiculous price. If some dumb buyer wants to give me some ridiculous price, I'll sell it. But, I could stay here for the rest of my life. Okay. Wow. That tells us a lot. Okay. We're talking about listing appointments and conversion because the way that you outlined that appointment, that guy didn't seem like he wanted you there very badly. Okay. I shouldn't, that's the wrong thing. We got the appointment. We'll talk about it. What improvements have you done, Matt, since you've been living there? I need this to do some type of accurate CMA because I can't even finalize price until after the listing appointment is done. And then I'm going to tell them kind of what to expect. I'm going to email you these things, just like we talked about, a detailed pricing analysis and the comparable homes. Matt, can you review this prior to our meeting? Now, I'm going to stop for a second. For most of you watching, and Matt, let me ask you this. If this wasn't a listing appointment, the call probably would have already ended. Would you agree?
Yeah, probably. I mean, they'd be like, why are you asking me all this stuff? Why does it matter?
Yeah. Well, watch this. I mean, watch the next question. If it hasn't ended, if it's not a listing appointment, and I know this, if I haven't noticed this now, I'm definitely going to find out on question 8. So let me role play this. So Matt, listen, our meeting's going to take roughly about 30 minutes. Okay. I'm going to walk you through and go through a detailed price strategy that's going to cause your property to stand out and sell for a premium. Okay. I'll go through all the numbers. I'll walk you through exactly what it looks like to work with me. And then at the end of our meeting, at the end of our time together, we can then discuss next steps and potentially working together. Does that seem fair?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that seems fair as long as I can decide at the end.
Look, and I'm looking to pull out objections right here. This is called a trial close. So, Matt, I asked this question because I'm listening to say, well, dude, I'm not signing anything. I'm not interested in hiring a realtor. No. That's what I'm looking for. Or I look for, listen, if everything, if the meeting goes well and we like you and we think you're the right agent, we'd be absolutely open. Okay, got it. I'm asking this for them to set an expectation and for me. Is this a listing appointment? Is this a qualified listing appointment or not? Okay.
And so if you do get that objection, like, no, I mean, I'm definitely not ready to sign anything right now.
Then it's not a listing appointment.
Yeah.
It's not a listing appointment, right? So we have more work to do to say, okay, because this goes back to, Matt, what we've been talking about over the past couple of weeks, which is like people forcing leads when there's not a real opportunity and us kind of beating around the bush to kind of get to where we want to get to. And when I was reading your email, I kind of felt that way because we were doing a listing appointment at an open house. At least the way you outlined it to me, the guy was like very engaged. And then the other thing you said at the end of your email was, I'm not a big fan of high pressure, but I want to talk about that in a second. And so you could go through the rest of this, you guys. But the point is, these are all questions. At the end of your email, Matt, you said, I'm not, how did you phrase it? I should even pull it up. It sounded like you were doing most of the talking. My listing appointment, it's all questions. Just like that was all questions. So if I have a prospect that's not engaged, and you said he was looking at his phone, he was doing some other things, well, that means you were doing a whole bunch of talking.
Right.
So that's
I
the
was
thing I think
talking to,
yeah.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just saying I was talking to Keith Zimmer. I don't know if he's on this call, but I was talking to him a little bit um, about this after that appointment, and the way he kind of phrased it was every every time you talk, it's counted as a point against you, and every time they talk, it's counted as a point in favor of you. And at the end of the appointment, you want to have more points in favor of you.
That's
Right.
right. Because the other thing you said was you could feel his resistance growing. The
Yeah.
only time that happens is when we talk. The
Right.
more we talk, the higher the resistance, and that's our fault. When you're asking people questions and engaging them, it's very hard for them to do that, right?
Right.
It's very, very difficult. The other thing I want to bring your attention to is this. At the beginning of the listing appointment script is the setting the agenda. So the first thing out of our mouth at a listing appointment is this. So we go through a home tour, if you haven't done so already, and we sit down at the table and I say, Matt, we're going to go through a bunch of information, just like I told you over the phone. I'm going to walk you through a pricing strategy. I'll walk you through my plan of action. And if it sounds like I'm the type of agent you'd like to hire, and you and I see things and we're on the same page, at the end, we can decide if moving forward to the next step and getting the property on the market makes sense at this time or not. Does that seem fair? That is the first question on the script. So before we even talk about anything else, we do yet again another trial close, another opportunity to pull out objections or resistance from the prospect to say, Matt, no, I'm not interested at all about working together. I thought you were coming over because you had a buyer. Oh, shit, I missed something somewhere. This ain't a listing appointment, right? All of these things are preventative so that when you get to a listing appointment, you find yourself in line with your expectations. It sounded like this opportunity was kind of the opposite. Your expectations that it was a listing appointment, but the prospect seemed very disengaged.
Yeah, I think I was just, I feel like I had some sort of like barrier I needed to break through or something in my own, like my own mental sort of state, because I've had several of these opportunities, I think, listing appointments in my mind that with FSBOs that ended up canceling like the day of or the day before because they ended up hiring someone else. And that was just like building anxiety in me. And I just wanted to like get through that and just like sit in front of someone and like ask for the business, I guess, like directly and get through it somehow. And I just like was thinking too much about that rather than actually, listening and playing to the room type of thing instead of, you know, um,
Well, let me add, I guess I'll add to that. I want to understand, because I hear that a lot, like I'm losing out. So a couple of things I hear these two things. I hear, Brandon, most FSBOs are selling on their own. Like when people think that, when they say that, I'm not saying you're saying this, Matt. I'm saying in our group, I hear this quite a bit. There's a lot, but there are many being listed with realtors. I mean, many, a lot.
Yeah.
This is because we haven't had, for a lot of different reasons. And then the other thing I hear is the thing that how you ended the email. Like maybe I need to be more high pressure. I want to understand that better, because I think that's the other disconnect with tell me what you meant by that. And then I'm going to hopefully give you some coaching there.
Sure. I don't think I meant being higher pressure. I think I missed the whole point of the last, the first thing you're supposed to say in the listing appointment. I kind of didn't do that in the beginning. I didn't preface, I didn't sit down and say, I'll walk you through all this stuff. And at the end, you can decide if it makes sense for us to work together at this point. I just kind of jumped right into like, so, what's your, what are the questions? Like, what's your ideal situation? What's the ideal outcome? And what are your biggest concerns? And then I just kind of jumped into that without prefacing it the right way. And I guess what I was asking in my email is if by doing that, I felt like I was just beating around the bush the whole time. And that's why the resistance level was building so high. And instead, I felt like I should have done that from the get-go, like, maybe not ask for the business, but at least preface the whole conversation with how I sort of wanted it to go, or how in my mind how it was going to go. And make sure that we were all on the same page there, but I didn't do that.
Well, that is the value of foreshadowing, right?
Yeah.
Have you heard my haunted house analogy?
Yeah, where you walk through the whole house and tell everyone exactly where the monsters.
Yeah, this is the same thing in sales, right? So as better we become at sales, the better our ability is to foreshadow. And what I'm trying to do is future pace the prospect every point of the process to do two things. One is to pull out objections or potential roadblocks that are in between us working together. And then two, letting them know and setting a good expectation so they know what to expect. So the experience they have with me is better. Those are the two value points of foreshadowing. So I'm constantly doing that. You can call it future pace, you can call it foreshadowing, you can call it a couple different things, but the better you can do at that, this is going to sound counterintuitive, but like when you get good at selling, you're almost encouraging potential red flags up front to see how prospects respond, to see what you need to deal with and what level of motivation they have to get closer to hiring a realtor. Yeah. And so we're putting this stimulus out there on purpose to see where is this prospect really, right? Because here's the definition of high pressure to me, Matt. This is what I don't want you to do, okay? Well, high pressure to me is essentially on a phone call, trying to get the prospect, trying to convince the prospect that whatever they believe, whatever they say, whatever they're doing is a bad idea. So let me explain. Like a lot of agents will say, do you know, what are you doing for marketing? They'll say it and then they'll downplay it. Why did you decide to list for sale by owner? They'll downplay it. To me, that's applying unnecessary pressure. All we need to do is ask good questions to bring the prospect to a point of decision making. So what we have to do and what we need to get better at is our ability to ask questions to get the prospect to a point today to shorten the conversion cycle around what they're willing to do and what they're not willing to do. And the prospect gets to decide their own fate. But what we have to do is get good at asking the question, right? So on the phone, we're saying things like, again, hypothetically, Matt, let me ask you, if I could show you a plan, it made sense. It got your property sold, got you the money you needed out of the property. Would you consider interviewing me right now? That's a question. You get to decide how you answer that. But if you say yes to that, great. I'm going to go right to the pre-listing, the upfront listing agreement and start asking these questions and start increasing the quality. This is how you go there and you get the contract signed on the spot, right?
And if they say no, like that's kind of also what I was asking in the email is, if you sit down with someone and just ask them straight from the beginning, are you open to the idea of working with me?
Okay, watch.
And if you say no,
let me show you how to deal with it. Everyone has that same question. Everyone has that same question. We have to ask for the business at least 2 times. And this is how you do it. So if I asked you that question, Matt, you would respond with what? I say, Matt, would you consider interviewing me right now?
Wait, is this like a over the phone or sitting down?
Over the phone. We're over the phone. I'm trying to set a listing appointment, and I just
Yeah.
ask you that qualifying question. And I say, Matt, I guess let me ask you if the plan made sense. I just went through that whole script and I said, Matt, would you consider interviewing me right now?
Probably not.
Yeah, fair enough. Let me ask you while I have you on the phone, I guess how much time are you going to try and sell the property on your own before you might consider looking at other options?
At least a month.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, so if a 30 days goes by and you haven't got the offer that you want, or you just flat out haven't sold the property, at that point, you might be open to getting together to look at my for sale by owner plan.
I guess so. Yeah. I mean, if I don't have any other options, I would
Well,
consider it.
I mean, I guess here's kind of what I'm thinking. I don't think, to your point, we need to agree to anything right now. But I guess the way I'm looking at this is there's no harm at least you looking at all of your options, putting everything out there so you know what you could potentially do down the road if for some reason the house doesn't sell. I mean, there's no harm in looking at options. Would you agree?
I'd agree with that.
Because here's my thought. In my experience reviewing this plan, I am willing to bet that you find great value in things like my flexible commission program. You find value in my savvy seller program, which allows you to continue to sell the property on your own, Matt, even while its property's listed with me. And so let's not agree to anything today. I'm not going to ever try to pressure you to do anything. What I'd simply like to do is stop by, take a look at the home. And when I'm there, I'll at least review the plan so you know how it works. And then you could decide if this is something you would consider or not. Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Now, so that's a great example of asking for the appointment 2 times using 2 different strategies, 2 different scripts to get to the point of contention, which is me setting an appointment with you to literally talk about listing the home.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what it sounds like. Because anytime someone tells me no about because a lot of the time when we do that, you'll have a lot of people say, yeah, sure. If it makes sense, I'll be open to it. When they say no, then push the no out to a hypothetical question about the future. Then you see, do I have a prospect here or not? Do I have a lead here or not? Had you said no again, now I can make a business decision whether or not I'm going to follow up with you. Or a lot of the time people do what you just did, is they say, yeah, in this much time, then I will be open. That's what we've designed the scripts to do. Then based on this marketplace, when you get a yes to that second question, we can bring that down and ask for the appointment again.
Yeah. Okay. And then, yeah, that's what I think I need to get better at, is how to ask for the appointment and put it all out there rather than just like having it in my mind what it's going to be and how it's going to go. I need to be more direct and be
That's
more
right.
of a leader when it comes to setting that appointment. And then, so I guess the next question I have is to fast forward to, and I know we've been talking for a while, but fast forward to the actual appointment. When you sit down with them, do you start off the conversation like, I know that you're not ready right now to list the house. Is there some sort of like way to get that objection out to, like, what are your concerns about that? Like, let's talk about that. What are your biggest concerns about hiring a realtor?
Well, again, before you got to the appointment, you're going to go through the upfront listing agreement script.
Right.
So you're pulling all this information out, because a lot of the time they're just blowing off weak salespeople. And so you'll find that really what people do is they utilize this to see who are the strongest agents in the marketplace. And so as you're going through with confidence, the upfront listing agreement script, you're going to find the quality of the appointment, because just because you said yes to that second question doesn't necessarily mean we have a listing appointment yet. Because now I'm going to ask you the set of 8 or 9 additional questions to really determine the quality of the appointment, right? It's just the stuff we just went through again. And so I'm then going to make another business decision, because this is all happening in stages. I'm selling the appointment. And then again, we're talking about listing appointments here. I'm selling the appointment, which I got you to say yes to meeting. Then I'm going to determine the quality of the appointment through the upfront listing agreement script, right? And then see, okay, then I'm going to make a business decision on those questions, okay? And so depending on how that goes, maybe I go to the appointment, maybe I don't, but I can't answer that without going through this process.